Welcome back to Detailed, an original podcast by RCAT. This is a show where we uncover lessons learned to help you navigate your next project. I'm Cherise Lakeside, Senior Spec Writer at RDH Building Science, and your host. My guests today are 2020 AIA Gold Medal recipient Marlon Blackwell, FAIA Partner and Founder, and Meryati Blackwell, AIA ASID Lead AP, also a partner at Marlon Blackwell Architects in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Marlon Blackwell, FAIA, is an internationally recognized architect who has created iconic and award-winning designs across typologies, scales, and budgets for over 30 years. Honored with the 2020 Gold Medal from the American Institute of Architects for his enduring impact on the theory and practice of architecture, he is widely regarded as one of the most significant and original voices in design. Equally respected as an educator, he has taught and lectured at universities nationwide throughout his career and is the E. Fay Jones Distinguished Professor at the University of Arkansas. Marlon Blackwell Architects, or MBA, has received recognition with significant publications and more than 200 design awards, including the 2016 Cooper Hewitt National Design Award in Architecture. Meryati, or Adi, has been a guiding force in the growth of Marlon Blackwell Architects, helping to transform the firm from a sole proprietorship to the thriving international practice that it is today. She continues to work closely with Marlon and project teams to deliver thoughtful and award-winning designs that are both sensual and sensible. The project we are talking about today is the innovative new Heartland Whole Health Institute in Bentonville, Arkansas. Located near the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, Arkansas, the new Heartland Whole Health Institute offers a space where wellness, creativity, and community come together. Opening in May of 2025, the structure is shaped by the natural beauty of the Ozarks with its flowing curves, native stone, and dramatic brise soleil, or vertical fins, echoing the region's forested terrain and karst landscapes. Now let's get into the details. Welcome back to Detailed. My guests today, I'm very excited about my guests today, are 2020 AIA Gold Medal recipient Marlon Blackwell, FAIA, partner and founder, and Meryati Blackwell, AIA, ASID, lead AP, also a partner and director of interiors at Marlon Blackwell Architects in Fayetteville, Arkansas, a place I have never visited. The project we are going to chat about today is the Heartland Whole Health Institute in Bentonville, Arkansas. Marlon and Meryati, what a pleasure to have you both here today as my guests. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It's great to be here.
And as I mentioned before we started recording, we actually met briefly in 2022 when you both came to Portland to speak as our keynote speakers at the Portland CSI Industry Forum event, where you so graciously gave me, I'm going to plug your book because you so graciously gave me a copy of your book, Radical Practice, which holds a place of honor in my living room with my other very treasured coffee table books. And I love it. And I actually flipped through it a little bit for this interview. So welcome. How are you today?
Doing great. Pati, are you doing great?
Yeah, we're doing great. Thank you so much.
We're in separate places on our.
I guess just back to back, but like I'm under that tree.
Yeah.
But
So
I'm not
it's
there.
beautiful day here in the Ozarks. Just great to be back in conversation with you.
Well, I am thrilled to have you. And I start every episode with what I call my icebreaker question. Warm us up a little bit, find out a little bit about you. And it's a different question for every guest. And so for the two of you, I know a number of couples who are married or partners and also working together in the same firm. I have very good friends in Portland CSI that are married and both work at the same construction company, both architects. I'm curious, and I also know that you have 2 children, I believe?
Correct.
Yes.
So, I'm
As
curious
far as
what
we know, right?
so
Yeah, as far
yeah,
as we know.
no secret
Yeah.
child in the attic.
I would not.
I'm curious what tactics the 2 of you use to create any semblance of work-life balance, or is there any?
It's a good question.
Mhm.
I always people always ask me that, how do you balance, because I also teach, right? So the university, been there at University of Arkansas for 33 years, and you teach and you practice, and that's like, there is no balance. It's every day is, you rearrange the chairs on the deck, sort of trying to make space and time for everything you need to do. But I don't know, we just make it work, don't you think, Ati?
Yeah, I think you just have to plan ahead and then you just take a day at a time. Kind of schedule things and I think we both when kind of like your work is your life, so it's in some ways it's not like we work all the time, but like even when you work, like I guess when you're also partners at home, like sometimes you talk about work at home, but didn't really feel like work because it's kind of like your part of your life. So I don't know, but we made it work. Like Marlon is really good at planning. He likes to plan things like, just so that we could have a life. Like now that our kids are not at home anymore, they're all kind of studying. Either they're still like doing their post grad or studying their, young career. They just graduated. Kids up. Our daughter is that we plan ahead. Like we'll do like, okay, around Christmas time, we're gonna make a family trip, or we'll make plan for them to come home, like, and we'll go see a show or something like that. And that's the same with our life too. Like if Martin has a lecture, and I don't really like traveling like on that kind of stuff, and that's something that he does, and he's really good at it, and I don't really tag along. But sometimes he like make me come because the destination or something like that. So it's like that's how we kind of create a life with
Well,
it. It's kind of
yeah, and I think increasingly, I'm trying to insist that IT and I speak together and do things together, because it's, for a long time it was, I'm rushing here and there, and Ati's trying to, manage the work at the office that she's committed to, as well as, the kids as they're growing up, and I'm there, try to be there every weekend to do, be a dad, and it's just a lot of support and baton handing off to get things happen. But now that, like she was suggesting, the children are somewhat out and more independent, we have more time to kind of work together, literally, on the projects, uh, to get those in a more holistic state, uh, but also finding more opportunity for us to share, our experiences and thoughts, and together with audiences and different folks. If I can get her to do it, that's sometimes hit or miss.
Well, Adi, I'm thrilled that he dragged you to Portland and that we got the benefit of your presence here at least.
he didn't have to drag me to Portland. I
Yeah,
wanted to.
Portland's an easy one.
Well,
It's
we were happy to have you, and I'm thrilled to get this opportunity to talk to you again now. So let's talk about this building. This is a stunning building, and I'm a person that I don't say anything I don't mean. This is a stunning building. So why don't we start with the description of what exactly, I've done my homework, so I know the answer, but my listeners don't. What exactly is Heartland Whole Health Institute? Because prior to setting up this interview, I had never heard of it.
well. So this is an institute that really came about, I think, in 2019. It's a desire by Alice Walton to really rethink our healthcare systems. which are really more like sick care systems. They operate when you're ill, or they more treatment oriented. And she was interested in about uh, life management, well-being, preventative health, and because
Women.
most of the impacts that you have from regarding uh, doctors and operations and treatments and all of that really only impacts you about, or the impacts of that about 20%, right? That's impacts your health. 80% is determined or impacted by your lifestyle choices, what you eat, exercise, those sorts of things. And so a lot of people just don't know. And then until they're ill, right? Or something, oh, well, I need to take a pill for this blood pressure because I haven't, or cholesterol, things of that nature. So the idea that you could rethink how healthcare is managed and presented to folks, and even how doctors are, how they're how they bill and things of that nature. So she wanted to create an institute that would also be part of this idea of the intersection of art, nature, architecture, and health, right? That the intersection of these things help uh, establish a better well-being and a sense of well-being and mental and physical health. And they all kind of work together in a holistic way. So that was the kind of the fundamental premise of the Institute. Now, this building is located on the campus of the Crystal Bridges American Art Museum, which I think is probably the most important American art museum since the Whitney. I mean, it's a pretty amazing place, which she built in 2011. But she's gone a step further. So she's also building a 4-year medical college based on whole health practices. It's just been accredited. It will open up in August with its first class of students. She's also teamed with Cleveland Clinic and is now doing a whole health cardiovascular hospital on another campus nearby in Bentonville. I mean, these are serious investments in
I think she'll have all
really
the major
rethinking healthcare in the U.S. Sorry,
she'll
go
have
ahead.
all the major discipline of health. She's disrupting healthcare and how they're done in the United States. She's just attempting to, I think, of course, the whole concept of health and wellness and how that's been thought or delivered to people, the population. I mean, I think it's interesting in places like Arkansas, right, where you think that maybe that's not something that's in people's mind or in the forefront. But it's not enough to give education, but I think to really rethink, like Marlon mentioned, how doctors are being paid and how, so it's not like it's not the initiative is just like, let's think about diabetes care. Like when you have to amputate, that's the biggest bill that you can bill the health. Like she didn't want that. She wants to be able to, like, the doctor can also get paid well just to help your patient manage your health before it gets there. So that I think and I think it has a lot to do with the insurance industry as well. So she's not only targeting simply the teaching of health care in our nation, but also the whole how that insurance industry is being interacted with not only the patient but also the doctors and the healthcare providers. I thought it's like very very interesting because it's not just single channel. It's like dealing with everything else that created the situation that we have in the United States.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and it hinges on education in a lot of ways. So that's the basis for it. Now, I will say this, that it has been evolving. So as the the um, the medical school has come on board, which is another interesting building you may want to look at, Cherise. That's will be opening up soon. What it's beginning to happen is the sharing of programming. So the literal intersection of art, nature, architecture, and health. So shared programming now with the museum, shared programming with the medical college. All of that is part of now of whole health. There's also embedded in the institute another national organization called Art Bridges, and Art Bridges is set up to get uh, art out of the basements of museums, out of the archives, and into communities, as well as setting up kind of better ways in which museums can share their collections with each other, kind of helping in that regard. So that's another aspect of this. So over 200 people will be working in the building. So it's at one level, the top 2 floors, it's a 3-floor building, is primarily offices and so forth. The the bottom floor is for all the public programming, event space for conferences. This is museum quality. $100 million worth of artwork is on display relative to health, and these will be uh, changing out like once a year exhibitions, cafe, uh, outdoor art events, and what do you call it? Public programming and so forth. So it really kind of integrates itself into the Crystal Bridges campus as well as into the community of Bentonville. So it's something that I think will help demystify uh, ideas around health and how one would think about living a healthier life without it being this. A lot of people see that, oh, well, I have to change my habits and all that. Well, maybe some of it's about developing better habits earlier on. I mean, we all have our habits, later in life when things start to go wrong, and then we have to kind of reverse course. And it's kind of hard. I watched my father struggle with that, after years of smoking and then, having to quit smoking and then start eating. And then, it just put him in a tailspin about how to conduct his life. And so maybe when he started about thinking about that at the beginning of life, that might be something less disruptive, right? In terms of how we live.
Well,
So hope that helps with kind of grounding this in some ways.
wow, I'm impressed. I mean, I did some reading. I didn't quite put all of that together in what I was reading about it, but can you get her to come build one here?
Well, it's a national institute. So the idea is to disseminate. Yeah, I think it's a good point. But if you it's not really a treatment facility. And at one point it was going to be, you would have consultants and so forth there. But now I think it is about getting the message out in a more nationwide way and having conferences and different ways of getting yourself embedded into the healthcare system, with hospitals and with insurance and with all these different players that help make up our healthcare network in the country. But it ultimately shifts a lot of the responsibility to healthcare to the individual, right? And kind of getting them up to speed on how to better take care of themselves for each of us, really.
That's certainly something that I could get behind. A billionaire spending their money on,
Yes.
is something that's
Yeah.
And
helping. But I know she's famous for that too.
I
She's
think
quite
she
the
said,
philanthropist.
according to her website, it says that came from her own experience being in a hospital over her lifetime herself. And I think she has something that requires her to go, and how she, and the way that she feel better is right when she was in hospital, her mom would kind of like bring her art books or like, watercolor and things like that. So while she was there, I think her art helped her heal. And so she was like, and over the years that she got older, she realized that maybe we can do things differently, even if you need some kind of care or, professional attention through whatever issue that you're going through, but like make it a little bit more pleasant, or maybe less about the bill. She knows that doctors care, but at the same time, the model of that, how they get paid and all of that. So I found it very interesting, and also learning from the initiative that they're trying to do is that they once they get everything kind of together, they work nationally by bringing fellows, they call it, to come and learn from here and go back to their community and try to implement it. So it's kind of almost similar to that art bridges. You kind of bring, here's the art, I mean, artist investment, like for them. And then rather than storing it somewhere, you share it with community that might not have art collectors that can share within their community. So I thought that was, in some ways, quite similar to that whole health initiative.
So let's start getting into some more details of this building. You already touched, Marlon, on quite a wide variety of different spaces in this building. What did the programming process look like with the client in figuring out what all you needed for this building?
Sure. Well, they had a rough idea of the program, again, um, that would involve the exhibition of art and information on health. Uh, Again, initially imagining consultants, imagining a library that would be a reference, a health library, things of that nature. I think as we got into it, it was one of those projects that was evolving. I don't think the program, because the institute was so new, was still trying to figure out, okay, well, if this is who we are, how do we manifest that in the programming? And so there were things like, okay, we have meditation spaces, places for yoga, and then what role is the public? At what point is there, the work environment versus the public programming? And so that was something that was a line that sort of was fairly dynamic for a good part of it, even after we were under construction. You can
Wow.
believe it. So, yeah. So I would say it's much clearer now as something that's more of a hybrid. So again, where programming is being sort of how do you say it? There's cross programming, you could say, on the campus, which turns it, I think, kind of underscores this idea of a campus, right? That things are interrelated, right, and interdependent. These different everything from the museum to whole health to the awesome, which is the Alice Walton School of Medicine. Um, so I think we had to pivot a lot. We had to think about work environments and how they wanted us to think about it, which was both open and highly contingent and dynamic, flexible, and yet at the same time had, privacy, for consultations and conferences. And then also to be welcoming that, it is an office building and a headquarters in a way where people would feel welcome to come into and that they didn't have to go in to experience. So the idea of liminal zones of that porches provide, places for shade, places for gathering, outdoor event spaces. Uh, and also there is a whole network of pathway journeys that ties all the different programming of this 300, I think 160 acre whatever campus together, that this was an extension of those pathway journeys. And so it really becomes in many ways like a extended threshold into this world of art, nature, architecture, and health, well-being. So you have bikers, and it's also part of the Greenway system. And I know that Bentonville is very famous for is the number one destination for mountain biking in the country. So there's a lot of investment that's taking place there. It's all part of that network. So we were trying to figure out in the programming, uh, not just what happens internally, but also externally, and how it begins to respond to these different forces that are happening in the immediate terrain, but also how to construct a terrain of people and spaces on the inside.
So one of the things I was curious about is looking at the pictures. So this is an 85,000 square foot building on a 134 acre on the 134 acre Crystal Bridges campus. So let's start with the site. I like to work my way from the outside into the inside of the building. What did you have to work with on this site? Were there site consideration that affected the design and placement of this
Yes,
building?
yes, yes. So initially, I just will tell you this was a competition, a design competition, and we had the programming, and we had the site, which was a overflow parking, surface parking area um, along the edge of a ravine. And there are several ravines through the site, which they're now programming with trails as well as play space. And so this is overflow parking. We had to move the parking, 800 cars, to a parking uh, structure, which I'm sure you've seen too. That's uh, the art park, we call it, um, on nearby, where people would arrive by the cars and then begin their journey into the campus, and walking or with carts or however they choose to do it. Um, so there's a whole sequence. And the moment you get out of that parking garage, you're going through art. It's a whole proscenium for art. It's a cafe, uh, bar, pop-up retail, beautiful public plaza. You make your way through. So I was really intrigued with the ravine that we were sited against, and how to develop the massing and the footprint around that ravine, and let the ravine shape it. So let nature help shape the building. So that's was part of it. Now, what we had designed originally was a series of. They wanted it made out of mass timber originally, so we did a series of mass timber prisms, boxes, glassed, stacked on top of each other. So it's like a series of stacked bridges, let's so speak. And those created thresholds and dog trots, and you move through onto the site. So when we were awarded the project, though, Alice was sitting next to me, and she in a conference room, and she leaned over. She says, "Marlon, I really like your concepts," because we had worked with her before on the Crystal Bridges Museum store and other things, and family property and stuff like that. So, but she leaned over and said, "I really like your concept, but," said, "I don't like boxes. So we need to revisit that." So we basically had to redesign once we got it. But we went through a whole series of permutations looking at how we could be more responsive to the organic nature of these ravine and such. And so you see our first forays into using curves to kind of wrap the ravine, to create gestures to the folks that are walking, and introduce them to the building and welcome them in. Um, and we don't really call them curves, we call them bent lines, because they're curves with lots of tension. So we're not talking about amorphic shapes, but things that are much more tense. You think of Alvaro Alto and how he uses curves per se. So that's where our thinking was, to shape it. And then we had to think too about, how do we ground the building? What's the anchor, both physically and metaphysically? And then how does it meet the sky? And so one of the things that I had learned from Faye Jones, who was a friend and mentor. I never worked with Faye, but he is, uh, I'm sure you've heard of, and a wonderful architect of the Thorn Crown Chapel and a host of projects. In fact, Alice grew up in a house he had designed for her family. Uh, but he always talked about the cave and the forest, that all architecture in some ways is tied back to the cave and the forest, especially in the Ozarks with the karst topography and the hardwood forests. So we began to think of the building outside as anchored to an extension of the karst topography, a series of caves. And then the office part, the second and third floors, being more of the forest, kind of light, airy, lots of natural light filtering through. And then uh, that was sort of the kind of material logic. So the ground is more stone, and the upper part is, one would think of wood, but wood is a tough material outside. It works great on the inside, especially in our environment. It's pretty rough on wood. So we did an analog, and we used pre-weathered brass that would have the kind of verticality that we might use with wood fins, a brise soleil or whatever, for filtering the light. So those are basic ideas we had for how we work from the outside, allowing the site to shape it, allowing how people circulate through to shape it. And so we have a series of clefts and porches and shade, because one thing we learned, like when we did Shelby Farms Park, so wherever there's shade, there's people. And so we really wanted a building that could generate its own shade, both outside and inside.
And I may add, like, we also, in my mind, like the way we design, of course, it's like the site that give you the information, like your first intuition on how to place the building, orientation, all of the common sense attitude about placement within a site to take advantage of, the wind or light and shade, like south facing, whatever, like, what was given and plus what we can affect the feel of the architecture. But I would say over time, I realized that we are also very cinematic in how we compose the building. So I think, first of all, of course, you kind of have this intuition on how we form and shape the building. And then we kind of work with like how people perceive it and experience it, right? So like when you go to Crystal Bridges, for example, we were given the site, we knew that we were arriving to Crystal Bridges to get there. And then you flip back to, even if you don't go to whole health, you're going to flip, but the whole sequence of vehicular transportation to get there. And we knew that we wanted to create this sort of like vignette or feel of the building in some way to relate to how you move within that site. So like the placement of that big balcony, for example, was about that. Like, and also how we bring the pathway, like there's a lot of path going into the forest around Crystal Bridges site and also bike path as well. So there's a lot of that also that comes into play. You'll see how the building kind of perceive as though it's coming from the low and going up, that whole idea of a movement and the whole idea of termination, the whole idea of what we want people to experience when they kind of arrive at certain points. So I think that that's one of the most important way, because we're not just creating a form and also kind of bringing in program and make it look beautiful. But I think the whole idea of the cinematography of the aspect of the experiential side of that design, I think as we get older and more experience in crafting that, I think in some ways that is probably one of the most important, because that that balcony, for example, like it can only be there. It can't be on the other side,
Yeah,
and vice versa.
can I add to that, because I love the way you're saying cinematic, and that it's very true. I hadn't thought of that until just now, the way you, because it makes a gesture to you at the human scale, the ground level, the community room vitrine that says, makes the gesture, welcomes you through the dog trot into the main entry. But up top, it's actually is turning its away from you, right? So it's greeting you, and yet it turns away from you to really embrace the landscape on the other side. So you're getting these vignettes, these snippets that it's not fully revealed to you. So there's no one place to be. It's like all these different places to be, both whether you're walking or in the car. And I think that's a good way to how we were thinking of it, is that it's not a one-liner, you get everything on the first glance. It kind of invites you to come back. Um, and one of the things that we did, if you want to get into the weeds a little bit, Cherise, on detail. So when we were doing the vertical fins, the brise soleil for the east and west side to control the sun, so forth, we had learned from doing our really early project, the Keenan Tower House. We had looked a lot at the bark of tree, the striated bark of hickories and oaks here in the Ozarks, and how light moves around them. And we discovered that the bark was really ridges, a series of ridges that had a little, uh, would catch the light as it moved around, and then the other side of the ridge would be in shadow. And so as it moved around, it really described the roundness of the tree itself in a very textured way. So our thought was to create these fins that would in themselves provide shadow and light. So we beveled the ends of the fins at various places along each vertical fin. So it's catching, part of it's catching light at any one time, but part of it's in shadow. So as the light moves, this chroma of, yeah, of light and shadow begins to change across the surface, and it's slow. It pulses with the movement of the sun and nature in its different seasonal manifestations. So it's, again, so what we were interested here was, how do we uh, kind of get back to what Wright would talk about as architecture imbued with the order of change, which ties back to some notion of the organic, that somehow architecture can align itself with the processes, the microprocesses, let's say, of nature, and how it's moving, that it's dynamic. It's not something that's static. And so what we're doing with the building is registering that dynamism of nature in the surface of the building itself.
So, and you do a fantastic job of it too. And one of the things I have to say that I loved about this, I every time I look away, I'm not looking away from you. I'm looking at pictures while you're talking, so that
Sure. Yeah, and
so
I
that
have some
you're
I loaded
you,
too, if you would, but it's
yeah,
fine. You have them. So we
your
sent you
words
something.
have more meaning when I can see
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. But one of the things that that's always kind of bothered me in architecture is so many architects will put all their effort on the front of that building or the entrance of that building. And not that they're not thinking about it, that's not what I mean, but they don't create that experience of, I'm looking at these pictures and it's like, I want to go there and I want to go there, that no matter where you go, it's an experience, and it's
Discovery.
yeah, exactly. And I think especially for a facility that's looking to do what this facility is looking to do, I
Yes.
think this type of building demands that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I because you have a multiple users, right? You have the public. Alice told us, and I wanted to touch on what Ati was saying earlier about art and the role of art. She said, I've never seen anybody frown in an art museum or, or when they're experiencing art or making art or whatever. It's a joyful thing, right? It's a sense of I'm somehow connected to the world in a different way. It interrupts the habitual way in which I experience the world, and it makes me feel better. It makes me feel more alive. And so that's why art is such an important part of this. And so, the art programming especially in the ground floor is amazing, that they're introducing there. And then the cafe and a place to, have a coffee, sit, relax, or a community room and, or events. There's a pre-event gallery that, I mean, again, this is the the interior is museum quality, because it had to hold its own with the, Crystal Bridges Museum itself. But then we had to think about work environment and the role of natural light. And so we have about a 50-foot wide floor plate for the offices, and with light from both sides, from east and west, filtered through the brise soleil. So light travels about 25 feet in, so you get it on both sides. They don't even really have to turn on lights, maybe at their desk a little bit for task lighting, but it's all naturally lit, which is kind of amazing too. I don't know if that's getting to your insight here, but I was trying to think about how we're.
But
Yeah,
that's exactly it. I personally can't stand being in any space that doesn't have a lot of light.
Yeah.
I
Well,
I need that, and that's one of the things I love most about this building is all that glass and those fins. What a lovely, and then looking outside.
yes, yeah, we spaced the fence and made the fence deep enough so you could get a view, but also get the light control. And I want to underscore natural light. I remember I brought James Terrell here to Arkansas a while back, and he came, and one of the things that he said, like 2 sentences into his uh, lecture, is that in the U.S. the problem is there's too much light. There is some idea that we have to have everything lit, you know, by artificial light to be simulating natural light, and everything is like overlit and overbright, especially in an office environment. Whereas with natural light, you get the fluctuations of the day, right? So a cloud comes over the sun, well, the light dims down, right? You're feeling what's happening outside, right? So you get a little bit of light and shadow goes a long way, rather than just the constant bright light. So that's something I think that's really important, and the difference between just having something that's primarily all about the artificial lighting rather than the natural lighting, and then supplemented by artificial lighting.
I
I
think
couldn't agree with him more, to be
yeah, no,
perfectly honest. I think we've overdosed on artificial lighting, to be perfectly honest.
yeah, and I think it's also a great strategy because it's first of all, in my experience, I'm sitting right now under my skylight, like but it's I think without the light that we have in our spaces, we wouldn't feel the way we feel. Like I think it's part of the main characteristic of feeling the sense of wellness. And if regardless, even it might be an overcast day, it's better to have an overcast, dark day based on the natural light and views, and not because you turn on the light. I think that's one of the things that I have realized that really transform architecture, particularly in this one in particular, because it has a certain amount of budget that we could experiment a little bit more than the normal kind of like a lot of like almost kind of like economical budget that we have to deal with in a
Yeah,
lot
but
of.
I want to interrupt, Jati. We have made we're the MacGyver of architects, and we
Yeah,
have made amazing natural light
right.
spaces at a very shoestring budget.
Right, right. No, I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying
yeah.
that
Okay.
particularly with this one where you could do the bend, right? The curve
Yeah.
and bend
Oh
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
control and all that. But what
Oh
I'm
yeah. No,
saying
I
is,
get you. Yeah.
regardless, in all of our project, I think we have 2 or 3-sided light, and that allows you to kind of capture that light every in many direction. I think it's transformative. I think that's what I think the planning of that needs to happen early on. Like so that way, if you see a lot of our project, particularly the less expensive kind, it's like we will prioritize giving, 2-sided to 3-sided light everywhere in lieu of maybe even flooring so that we could get that. And we also understood that it's not only giving you a sense of health and wellness. I mean, we do that in schools, but also I don't know, there's something about it. Like it also save energy because in office environment, the biggest use of light, believe it or not, of energy, believe it or not, is through lighting. Well, maybe it's different now with LED, right? Because it uses way more light. But studies, it's not even to heat and cool. Back then, it was how you use the light. So it's like now a lot of our building having a light control that like only kicks on if it goes down a certain like candle. So yeah, so it's such an important thing that would something that we advocate very strongly on, regardless of the project budget, to have good windows, good clear stories, skylight, those kind of things. It's transformative. I would say the one key ingredient that we will try to not compromise.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because it's usually my number one most favorite thing. The more windows and natural light, the better, in my opinion. Before we move inside the building, tell me a little bit. We talked about the fins, which I think are fantastic. Tell me a little bit more about what other materials you used on the exterior of this building, particularly
Yeah.
that
The rock.
stone, the rock.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So, the joke around here in the Ozarks is our cash crop is rocks. Because we have very thin topsoils. You can't. We have no agricultural base other than chickens and beef, and I used to have apple orchards in those. A blight knocked us out 100 years ago. So, back in the day, and even up until the 60s, if folks wanted to find cladding and there wasn't a lot of wood available on their land, they would just find these field stones in the dirt and earth and lift them up, and then put them as a veneer on the walls, and then they would use huge grout joints because they were not stonemasons. They didn't know how to shape the stone, and they would just put these stones as they found them to make this beautiful patchwork of stone walls, which when you start to look at them, once you're all done with all the big grouts, they look like giraffes. We call them giraffe stone in giraffe buildings. They would make small churches, schools, houses out of this. And it's something that, there isn't I would say, a strong vernacular in the Ozarks, but that is one thing. When you see those giraffe stone buildings, you know that you're either in Northwest Arkansas or in Southwest Missouri. So, that was just something we thought, how do we make a connection to our place through material culture? And this, again, the idea that even conceptually that the building is anchored, that it has a foundation, and that it isn't in many ways analogous to the karst topography and an extension of that. We could use stone, and we have great stonemasons here in Northwest Arkansas. So we wanted to leverage uh, that craft and that tradition too. But so we decided to do a giraffe stone base. And if you're not from the Ozarks and you see it, you go, "Oh, that's kind of weird." But when you're here and you see the context, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Now we represented it on our terms. Now because it's a 20-foot high wall, you don't typically find them at that scale. We actually slightly enlarged the stones to kind of correct for scale. We tested a variety of different types of grout joints. We came up with something called a rope joint. So it's literally looks like a rope sitting proud along the joint. So it creates a shadow line when light hits it, a bit more texture. We tested the color variation because usually giraffe stone buildings are kind of just a limited range of color because it's whatever's in that strata that's on that piece of property. So today, to do it that way, you would have to scrape the site, which environmentally is not the thing to do. So what we do is go to a quarry. It takes the same stone, but it's just beneath the surface. So we went to a quarry just in Poto, Oklahoma, and in Paris, Arkansas, not Paris, France, but Paris, Arkansas, and got a mixture of both the ironstone, the kind of reddish stone, but also gray, kind of mix that up. So we made this whole palette of stone and did a series of 1-to-1 mock-ups with our stonemasons to get it just right, and figured out, because Alice really doesn't like boxes and which means 90-degree corners and stuff. We radiused everything, so you have the gestures of the curves, but also once there's hardly any 90-degree corners. It's all radiused, so you had to radius the stone. So you do that. We looked actually at turtle scoots on a turtle, and how they actually change in size as they begin to round a curve in the shell of the turtle. So we just told the stonemasons, as you get to a curve, gradually start getting smaller stones, make the radius, and then the stones start to get back to normal size. So they did that in an almost seamless way. So it's a beautifully crafted deal. And I know when they brought Alice out to see the first big section of wall that was installed, they said she actually teared up because it brought back memories of her childhood growing up in the Ozarks and so forth. So that's where that stone came from. And then, and which made sense also with the pre-weathered brass, which has complementary tones with the stone as well. But again, both materials are highly resilient and very durable. So there won't be any deferred maintenance on these two materials.
Well, it's beautiful. Doesn't it get pretty hot in Arkansas in the summer?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So what'd you have to
Can.
do with that glass? This triple
Well,
glazed glass, or how are you managing that
No,
heat?
we're
No.
managing through the fins.
it's a very,
The fins are deep enough. They actually create about 20% in energy savings just on how we're controlling that. We also have shades that are either manual or tied to the sun that will move up and down along with the sun as needed to help control any direct light getting in between those fins. And those fins are, I think, how deep are they? Like 3 feet deep, Ati, 3 feet, something like
3
that.
feet, yeah. But the
Yeah.
guns is also energy, I think it's low E, triple,
Oh, it's
like
not triple glaze, it's double, but
it's double
it's
glazed, yeah.
got all the
We don't have a
coatings on it. Yeah.
cold weather, like, we do have, hot summers. I mean, we get cold too, but it's not extended over 3 months, usually, like, it get really, really cold for, like, 4 or 5 days, and then we have a warm up a little bit, and then it get cold again. So there's not that extended freeze temperature that a lot of places have. So yeah,
But
so
but from the heat standpoint, I also think that the
mm,
curve works really well too.
yeah,
So the sun isn't just sitting in one place. It's raking across the
I mean
curve. And
it's
then you have the thermal mass of the first floor, which is
yeah, and it's
pretty
like a
intense.
energy saving feature of the building, and how to kind of make sure that it's designed in a way that's sustainable um for the usability over a lifetime of the building. That's embedded in the design with our consultant team as well. So it's not just like, oh, design and we don't really care about everything else. No, it's
No, 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 not at all.
embedded
I
in
mean,
a way that is yeah.
orientation is key, and so we solve a lot just through orientation.
glare, heat gain, all of that's already been built into. Same thing with
Yeah.
acoustic. The acoustic is fantastic in the
Yep.
buildings. Is you
Great
really
segue to go inside, Adi.
yeah
Go.
yeah
Yeah. So,
'Cause I know
perfect
we have
lead
limited
into the
time.
next
Yeah.
question. Yeah. So I understand that visitors are invited into the building through this generous dog trot that runs through the center of the building.
Yeah,
So
the
describe
breezeway, yeah.
describe to me what I see when I walk in the building. Paint me a verbal picture.
I okay, so I think it's important to understand the dog trot idea was intended to not make a front door, it's a side door because you want the invitation for you to kind of flow through the building out into the lawn, and then it framed the trees really because you're on an elevated elevation. So it's really stunning, just feeling like you're being brought in to go to the outside. And then you go to the side. So the entry is to the side. If you walk on the second and third floor, you can bypass the public entrance. You go to the right. So there's an entry going directly to your office if you want to go that way. But if you're the public and you want to enter the ground level, which is the public level, you enter in a very in a narrow kind of like low,
Extended vestibule.
yeah, like it's an this vestibule that kind of pull you in, and then you have this sort of constrained feel, and then it opens up into the view. And we also set up like the whole cinematic idea of like, okay, you're coming in some place that is slightly constricted and it's kind of framed the view, you don't really see right away. So it's you walk and you experience this beautiful wall, and then suddenly you're confronted with this setup of the stair, which is dramatic in a way, and it becomes a backdrop to your entry view. So there you'll see the stair that takes you up. There's also this oculus, which is the culmination of all of the movement of the ceiling, which is made out of pecan hickory plywood. Um, and then also
Well,
there's
it's CNC milled, so it's the
yes,
ribs. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
clearly
So
you have
it
CNC can't really cut it, yeah.
well, yeah, but these
You
are all
wanna get
custom
that
ribs.
look, yeah.
But that's a canopy. So
Yes.
that is the idea of the cave in the forest. So you're on stone floors. You have Venetian plaster walls, which is just gypsum from the earth that you can beautifully done. That and then the canopy, the ceiling is all beautifully milled, custom milled, CNC milled pecan, which is the forest canopy, right?
Yeah,
That
and
is organizes every floor.
yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna
Yeah, no,
throw that in there.
I think the whole idea was for you to feel like you're in touch with nature. So when you come in, so the whole choreography of what you experience as you walk in and what you will see as soon as you enter, and as well as what you will feel. Because the whole feeling is another thing. You see, you feel, right? So I think of it as a choreography of eliminating all the noise so that and that means design noise. So like you want them to perceive this canopy of the tree so that the pecan is giving you that. Is the whole idea of an underside or a mushroom, for example, feeling like you're in a walk in an Arkansas forest, that beautiful stair that kind of comes down and lands on the floor. That is so it allows us to narrow down our selection. So like the whole idea of everything must be in its natural state, so then we want to use a natural quarried floor. So we went with the travertine because it gives you that imperfection that you will want to see, like the fossils that you might see in there, the different variation in texture. Um, Also, it's a healthy material. I mean, I actually learned that quite recently that, just like the trees, which is a carbon sink, and, because they still absorb CO2. The same thing with some of the quarried floor, like limestone, travertine, that kind of stuff is an absorptive CO2 material. So that was interesting. But but also like eliminating everything else. So you don't really see any things that you see in the ceiling, like because it's hidden by that, right? So it's like you just allow people to see the beauty of it, even though it still need to have all the things that the building needs to perform, like light, mechanical, all of the alarm system and all of the things, but it's all curated in a way that is part of cinematic. experience that you feel inside.
Yeah,
It's also,
it's yeah, and that creates the environment, right? That when you
yes.
say cinematic, you're taking away all the infrastructural aspects
Mhm.
of a building, vent ducts, sprinkler heads, all that, and it's all embedded up in that canopy. So you're
Yes.
just feeling the material and the
Uh-huh.
surface. And one
Uh-huh.
of the things that Ati did is as a backdrop to the stairs are a backdrop. Uh, they have, of course, the stone reception desk and all.
Mm.
Then behind that is this beautiful 20-foot high quilted felt wall of a series of pillowed uh, uh, colors of nature, greens and beiges and so forth. That's all felt, natural felt for sound acousticization, but just a great texture and
Yeah.
visual kind of backdrop.
Yeah, so again, playing back with the idea that you're reminiscing of your walk in the forest. Like if we don't bring the green, you might not feel it. Like, so and it's also an acoustic material. We need a little bit more of an absorption there because it's a lot of it used to be where they wanted to have an exhibition area. So concerned about noise and we studied the noise level and felt like we need to have absorptive material there. So that give us a potential to do something decorative, but also actually it's a way to absorb the sound as well. So like doing two things with one thing. And then we were asked to do to add a cafe. That cafe keep on going back and forth. Like, do we need a cafe? Do we not? In the end, we have the cafe there. But again, it's not like something that we just added. It becomes part of the flow of the space. So if you go there, you'll see there's a little kind of dent in the of flow indentation in the space to like allow you to have seatings and things like that. And again, bringing in the material that was already there, which is brass, and then a darker wood that we find here. We have a lot of walnut, beautiful walnut, just to give that flow. And then also the seating kind of like takes on the textural quality and the color of the walnut, but it had to be, a different material because it has to be seat. So again, like the whole thing was about choreographing how you want to experience the place. So as a designer, for me, I can say it's a lot less about like I want to put this cute pattern. It's not like that. It's about like experiential. How do
Yeah,
you want the whole
creating the environment. Yeah.
the environment, and then
Uh,
the material kind of follow that whole narrative, a cinematography, curation that you have created in your mind, right? So it allows us to and the same thing. I think we talked about the colors too. That's another thing that was brought up to us. It was like they find it very effective to like because sometimes we don't get to speak to Alice. A lot of time we're talking to their team, and then we have to allow their team to report to Alice. So when we were thinking about the curation of the interiors, we were trying to find a way to kind of make it effective, not only for us to kind of follow a thread of idea, but also for her and her team to understand. So we stumbled on a collection of art. One of her early pieces, there was a big accusation for her. That was a Kindred Spirit by forgot who the artists were. But anyway, when you said
Asher Duran.
Asher
It's a
Durant,
Hudson Valley
yeah,
painting. Yeah.
it's a Hudson. But from that painting, it's like two guys sitting, communing in nature. They were looking out over this karst topography projection, like just like
Forest and the
building
forest.
cards.
Yeah.
And then within the painting is looking out into nature. You feel this peacefulness. They're talking, so that's an intellectual conversation going on. Everything was so embedded in this painting, and all the colors are in it. It was very subtle. You don't really see there's purple and oranges and blues and greens and browns and
There's
grays
a
and
hundred colors in this
yeah,
painting, but you would when you look at it, you'd think, oh, there's only 3 or 4,
yes,
but it's
because
all
nothing.
so
Yeah,
blended. It's like nature, right?
yeah.
So
So once we showed that to her, and that's how we curate even the upholstery and everything else in the building. It was very effective for us and for her. When we showed it to her, she totally get it, and she was like, "Go for it!" Like that's really really cool. And I will remember that next time. Like trying to come up with a good way to
palettes.
grow
Yeah.
our selection.
So I love talking about challenges. So I want to touch on, before we get to our final questions, touch on 2 quick questions, because I think we learn the most from our challenges. So, both design and construction. Let's start with design. What was your biggest challenge, your biggest design challenge on this building to get where you wanted to go?
Design challenge. Okay, so
Design
that's
challenge.
yeah. I think the biggest was to find that sort of natural, uh, almost seamless relationship in terms of the sensibility of the outside with the sensibility of the inside. So each have their own identity, and yet they resonate with each other extremely well. It's, I think, the best collaboration that IT and I have had together on this to date, and how it all goes together. There's a lot of trust there, um, which means I just get out of her way once she's doing that, which is better sometimes. But it, I think that was the greatest design challenge, is getting things to hold together from the scale of the hand to the scale of the room to the scale of the building to the scale of the site. So that sort of resoluteness is a real challenge. And I think our team did a wonderful job without overdoing it, without becoming fetishizing things, right? And so I think we made a true kind of ecosystem there for people to work, and a really sense of well-being, a great working environment, and people to visit, and people to kind of let things go, from outside, the outer world, and you enter a kind of sanctum that wants you to kind of rethink about where you're at in the world, and think about your own sense of well-being and health through conduits like art and material and light, those sort of fundamental values of design, space. And I think that was the challenge. And I feel, I personally feel really good about where we got with that. I think uh, that in the design part, I think the execution part is also another side of that challenge, which is getting it built, trying to get it communicated to those that are building it, to the good people and craftspeople that are building. Uh, that was a bit of a challenge. I mean, there are structural heroics in this building that I still don't quite understand. I mean, it's basically a hanging suspended bridge between these big, the big rocks, the big foundation, that creates the porches and things of that nature. There were some real feats to hardly any columns in the building, just things like that. But all of it to make these really great spaces. But yeah, getting it built is the whole other side of the thing. But where the design challenge doesn't stop when you hand off the drawings to the contractor, right? So that's the key.
Well, I have to tell you that I'm a very much a minimalist personality, and I love spaces that make a statement without just bombarding you with stuff. And
Yeah, yeah, I
you've
do
done
too.
such a
Yeah.
fantastic job here of combining the nature outside, and bringing that theme into the building and making. I mean, I'm looking at the stair picture and the walls and the ceiling. It is so dramatic, but so humble at the same time.
Yeah, it's just plywood. It's just pecan veneered plywood.
You
Yeah.
would not know that by
Yeah.
looking at it, though. And so it's beautiful. So tell me about construction. I understand that this building is set to open soon. How has
Yes.
construction gone? Any surprises that you had to
I
navigate that you want to share?
I think we had a good team. I think construction is sausage making. It's like making sausage. It's a mess, you just try to get through it and get the design intent realized, and still have good relationships and friendships with both the client and the contractor on the other side of it. It's a difficult process. And I think for Ati and I, it's our favorite phase of of making a design and
A
and
favorite?
getting a building?
It's
Eh,
not my favorite.
Okay, well, it's my favorite
Especially
because I love seeing it getting realized, but I also love
I think it's
so
important. Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah,
It's
it's the most
hard.
important, but it's
It's the
not my
hardest
favorite
part.
because it's the most challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, but solving problems on a day-to-day basis and so forth, I mean, it was a difficult project. If I'd be lying to say, "Oh, this was easy," but then most things in life that are worth anything aren't that easy. They create. Yeah, there are a certain amount of sacrifices and things that you have to do to create something of value. But we're all focused. We're focused on the mission, on the project, and it was greater than any one of us. I mean, I know it sounds like a cliche, but that was part of the team. We all understood that, both the client, the contractor, and the design team. So there was the three-legged stool, and for the most part, in alignment. Sometimes it got a little out of alignment, but for the most part, and we get to the other side of this, and it's quite beautifully crafted and built. And uh, really, I think when you get 95% of everything you wanted in those original drawings, it's like, wow, that's a success, right? That's a victory. So I see it uh, as challenging as it's been. It opens May 1st, to your question. Uh, as challenging as it's been very rewarding, and the feedback we're getting from the users who moved in about a month ago, they love it. I get notes from emails, stuff. Thank you for this wonderful place to work. I love it. It's just we've been training docents for tours, Ati and I. 2 hour. We do 2 hours with them to help train and done 3 of those already, and help them tell the story of the building. And you're just walking through the building, and people they walk up to us and says, "Thank you for this. Thank you." So that's you can't put a price on that. So I we're very excited about that, and I hope it'll be embraced by the public. I mean, it's not a museum, so we don't expect, hordes of people to come in, but I do think that those who are interested, uh, those who are part of the programming, the conferences and education aspect, the art, will have a really enriching time if they take the time to come into the place. And I think it is a beautiful complement to the Crystal Bridges Museum, and to the new Alice Walton School of Medicine. So they make a great trifecta for that campus.
I would agree. So we're almost out of time, but I'd like to get to our 2 closing questions really quickly if we can. So I always close with a broad industry question and then our final question that I make everybody answer. So the industry question: outside of work, you are also a professor. I also teach, so I can relate to that. In addition, in your book Radical Practice, you speak highly of your mentors along the way. And this tells me that teaching and mentoring is important to you, like they are to me, like it is to me. In the book, you are asked near the end of the book, what lies ahead? And I found your answer interesting. And your answer was, quote, I don't think too far ahead. So I need the associates in the firm to keep asking where we will be in 5 years or 10 years. How will work be distributed and how will we teach? So, what advice or wisdom can you share with other architects or firms on how to effectively teach, empower, and give control to those who are going to be carrying the mantle in the future for you? Easy
That's
question.
Yeah, that's really hard. We've had our ups and downs with that. Uh, I think what Ati and I try to do is set a framework for authorship in the firm. Uh, I realize that my name is on the header, the banner, so to speak, and uh, I think that first came when I read The Fountainhead in college, and I believe every word of it. And then as I've become, a professional and a practitioner and so forth, I realized that a lot of that's just bullshit. It's you have to have a team. You have to surround yourself with great people. I found that as a academic And as a former department head, I was only as good as the team around me. The same thing here in the firm. Um, so I think that we often will initiate ideas and a framework for those ideas to be developed over the trajectory of a project. But the idea is to invite others in along the way to participate uh, in the thinking and the development of the idea. And it doesn't matter where the ideas come from. The best ideas win. So a summer intern can have an idea that will be incorporated in that project as much as someone who's been here with us for 15 years. So we try to, in the design process, uh, have it to be more participatory rather than a spectator, watching on the sidelines. We want people to get involved, and everybody has something to contribute throughout the entire process from conceptualization to realization. So I think that kind of empowerment is helpful, uh, and it also helps immerse our um, staff colleagues here uh, in the process, and helps build, I think, some confidence. It's very important that your people are around, that they feel confident, they feel like they can say something, and it not be like slap back at them or something. It's like it's. I think it's just really important. I think people understand that yes, there is a hierarchy here. I mean, we're not. I'm not talking about a flat hierarchical system, but I'm thinking about one that is generous in spirit, that is, how would you say, it's kind of like a student, too. I never give up on students. Everybody's dealt a different deck of cards. That includes professionals too, and I try to work from where they're at. They come, they stay with us. Some have stayed on, and others have left. We always try to find ways to connect them out in the world with either at least as good of firms as us, or even better. We're always trying to mentor and be kit for folks within the firm and even as they leave the firm. So that's kind of the ecosystem that we've set up. I don't know where it's going. I don't know, like, as I said in the book, we try to live in the present. Uh, and I do like to plan some things, but I don't like to get too far ahead. You know, it takes so much to do what we do, energy. I don't want to ever get into that corporate mindset of doing your best to do your least to make the most. I hate that. And I try to get our people here to understand that that's short-term thinking. The long-term thinking is to really, you know, uh, do whatever it takes to make a really great project, no matter how small it is, or how large it is. So that's the ethos. We also have something we call the meta project, that we have written down our ethos, and it's a working document, but it's something we've shared with everybody to understand why we're doing the things we do, why we focus on certain things and less so on other things. I think that helps, the transparency of how we think with each other, so it's less of a mystery, I think is important as well. So that's my long-winded answer to your very difficult question.
No, I appreciate that. So, final question for both of you. And every guest on the podcast since I started gets this question. I call it the easiest one of the day, and trust me, that's total sarcasm. We all hope to live a life. I hope we all hope to live a life that leaves some kind of contribution to make the world a better place, whether it's big ways or little ways. So, personal or professional for each of you, what do you hope your impact will be?
I'll let IT lead off with that one.
I think for me would be that we tried our very best to bring something different and elevate community. We want to bring the world to our place. I mean, there's a lot of wealth, of course, in our area, but also there's not a lot of wealth in some ways. There's some very, very, very wealthy people, but there's also regular folks. This is Arkansas, after all. And to be able to bring something that you cannot find here within our town, and not just for here, but and then level quality that that you might not even find in other places, even, California or New York. Like being able to try your hardest to bring the best and that you can do within your profession. And I think, and also at the same time, I think also really important to understand that we're not doing this as a charity. Like it's actually a viable, good business. So like I feel like the business model that Marlon mentioned of the corporation is not the only way. Like how you can really benefit from doing your best to bring the best and spending the time to do that and make it your life work, but also at the same time actually do well, for yourself and your family and your people that work with you. And I think the most important is like not only that you have to have good people, but I think you have to have the kind of people in your organization that have that same energy and understanding. Because what we realize is that there are those that are like, they might not understand. To them it's like a corporate deal, but it's like for us it's a life work. So like once they understand that, it's maybe a slightly slower process to get there, but we have got there, right? In some ways it's like you're inheriting something, you got to keep that um, in some ways going. And I think in order to do that, they have to be in sync with what we brought. So, like for example, if you're working like for a Faye Jones, you understand the Faye Jones ethos, and you can't, get there and then start changing it, right? I mean, how do you carry on the tradition, but also at the same time make it your own, but like carry on the DNA. Otherwise, start your own thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just wanted to add to, and I left this out of your previous question, but it fits in with what Ati's saying, is surrounding yourself people with a positive mindset. You know, the positive mindset is contagious in the way that a negative mindset can be contagious too. And so the positivity in what we do as designers is really lessons in optimism, conditional optimism. I think uh, that's really important. I'll make mine really short because I'll just lean back into something we always say. Without I don't know. I'll leave that up to other folks to say what the legacy should be. But I think one of the things our mission has been from the get go, and maybe one of the is something that was discovered after being here in Arkansas for a little while. It's like, why am I here? Why am I still here? And I, you know, I I think it really first really came to the surface in the most direct and meaningful way was through the St. Nicholas Orthodox Church that we did, a small church we made out of a welding shed, which was to demonstrate to folks, if we have a legacy, is that we've demonstrated that architecture can happen anywhere, at any scale, and at any budget, you know, and for anyone. I hope that we will be successful in demonstrating that architecture isn't just for the select few, but it's for everybody, and everybody should have access to that. And so whether we're designing a free health clinic, or in this case, this most recent building, the Heartland Whole Health Institute, it's something that everybody can feel welcome in and feel like they have a role to play as far as being in this building, just in their own kind of experience, that it's something that it's not just a one-sided deal or transactional deal. It's something that good things that they can take away from their experience, from their engagement with it, and that it's enriching and dignifying as well. This idea of a fundamental civic dignity, which basically underscores that everybody can feel a part of this, that they have a role or a level of importance in these environments. I think it would be a really great legacy to take away or to have, perhaps.
I agree. And I love that. Marlon and Ati, thank you. Truly thank you for joining me today. This has been I've been looking forward to this since we set it up, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you will consider coming back and chatting with me in the future about you
Absolutely.
do some incredible work. So I would love to have you back. You don't have to wait for an invite. You could just drop a note and say, "Hey, Cherise, we got a really cool project. You want to chat?" And I'm on
That's-
board.
Oh, great. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and tee you up on that one.
Okay.
So we're doing a project right now that if it comes off the way we hope, you could have Ati and I and perhaps another guest. But we are currently working on a project taking William Faulkner's old mule farm outside of Oxford, Mississippi, and turning it into a writer's retreat. And it's got this amazing story with it and what we're doing out there. I won't say anything more than that, but it'll be done about 20, I think 27 early. But that would be something worth coming back and maybe bringing back our muse and client, John T. Edge, to talk about that with you. Anyways.
I'm a lifetime reader. I would love that. And now you're on my list, so you can't escape me.
That's right. Well, like I say, I'm teeing you up.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having us on board.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Thank you both. I'm excited to share this with all of our listeners, and I'll let you know when it's coming out.
All right.
Great. And we'll check you out next time we're in Portland.
Absolutely. We can meet I'd love to meet for dinner.
Done.